I'm not worried at all. I'm not worried. Whoa, around me, murder.
Hello, my friend Scott here, representing Youth Potential. Now, in today's video, I'm going to be talking about anxiety, what it is and how I personally deal with it. So, first of all, what is anxiety? Well, the dictionary definition for anxiety is a feeling of worry, nervousness or unease about something with an uncertain outcome. So that kind of defines it from just a very, very basic understanding. Anxiety is way more complex than that, but to someone who doesn't suffer with anxiety or doesn't live with anxiety, but perhaps you have someone in your family, friends, or someone you work with that suffers with anxiety, that is the kind of most basic thing that you need to understand. It is a feeling of worry, nervousness and unease. But there, as I say, there's way more to it than that. So anxiety, also known as general anxiety disorder, has sort of physical symptoms and psychological symptoms. So let me just go through some of the psychological symptoms of someone who suffers with anxiety. And this information is provided by the NHS. And I just want to point out that not everyone that deals with anxiety actually experiences all of these symptoms. Sometimes you can experience one and then another time another one, or a combination of them. It's completely different to every individual and different experiences, okay? So the psychological symptoms are restlessness, a sense of dread, a feeling of being on edge, a difficulty in concentrating and irritability. I personally think dissociation can be one of the psychological symptoms as well. When I've had panic attacks and experienced anxiety, I felt like disassociating. And if you guys don't know what that is, it's basically where you don't really feel connected with reality. The best way I can explain that is like you're kind of in your own little bubble and the whole world around you is a completely different. You don't feel like you're in the world really. It's like you're watching life through a screen almost. It's like there's a barrier, like you can see into it, but people are almost looking through you. You don't feel a part of it. You're just kind of in your own world watching everything go by. That's how I would personally describe dissociation. And the physical symptoms of anxiety are as follows: dizziness, tiredness, fast or irregular heartbeat, muscle aches or muscle tension, trembling or shaking, dry mouth, excessive sweating, shortness of breath, stomach pains or aches, feeling sick or nauseous, headaches, pins and needles, especially in like the hands and feet, and sleeping difficulties, especially for someone who deals with anxiety and you try to get to sleep. Sometimes, even though it can make you tired, it can also make you really restless and not be able to fall asleep. So that's kind of, as I say, the definition of anxiety and some of the symptoms. But also something to bear in mind as well with anxiety is that everyone has different triggers that triggers anxiety. There's things like phobias, past experiences that have been unpleasant, and then sometimes someone might fear a future possibility of something similar happening. Like for a long time, years ago, I was followed and then threatened by some people when I was like 16, and then from then on I was anxious about going to a particular McDonald's restaurant because that's where it all started, and for over 10 years I didn't go back to that restaurant just because of that experience. I had so much anxiety around it. Every time I walked past it, it made me feel anxious. It was really unpleasant. And also with anxiety, you've probably heard of panic attacks or anxiety attacks. The best way for me to describe a panic attack is kind of like all those symptoms I just described. They can come on, loads of them all at once. And panic attacks can be either mild, where you get some of the symptoms, it doesn't feel too intense, but you know it's there. And sometimes you can have really severe ones where it just feels so draining and just so intense. you have all the symptoms, physical and psychological, just come at you at once, and it's just so overwhelming. It's horrible. I mean, I'm lucky to say I've probably only had 2, maybe even 3 really severe panic attacks. The other ones that I've had have been relatively mild by comparison. So yeah, panic attacks and anxiety, you know, could be triggered by different things. I just want to describe 2 panic attacks that I've had, one being a mild one and one being a severe one. A mild one that I had was only the other day, yesterday, to be honest, whilst at work. If I don't know if you guys know, I work in a kitchen as a chef, and we're doing a Sunday breakfast service, and it wasn't particularly busy and stressful, because I know that can bring about anxiety. That can be a trigger for a lot of people. Things were going fine, you know, I had everything prepared. Me and my team were all working really well together, and it was going smoothly. And then I could just feel like my heart rate increasing, my breath was getting like really short. I went in and out of sort of slight disassociation, just in and out of like focus, and I was getting like, you know, I was on edge, and it was really unpleasant, you know. Normally I don't take my medication in the morning till after work, but this time I had to stop and take it because I was really struggling to calm down this panic attack, believe it or not. Lasted about an hour. Panic attacks can last that long, if not longer, but they can also last a lot shorter than that as well. And fortunately I had the support from the guys I work with. They were like, you know, if you need to take how long ever you want outside, get some fresh air. And that was really good of them, but I just wanted to kind of focus, try my best to focus on the job and just plough through it, because that's personally how I cope with it a bit better. But yeah, it was just, I was running around back and forth. I couldn't concentrate. I was making like mistakes, like I was forgetting things, and it was really frustrating me. And then I took my medication, and then the panic attack ended, and I felt quite drained, to be honest. Panic attacks can be quite draining, no matter how mild they are. It was draining. I felt kind of just like I was plodding along. Fortunately, work had started to die down. It was getting quite quiet, and I could plod along. But yeah, it was bloody exhausting. It was really unpleasant. I think for me, like with panic attacks, I know they're coming. It's usually my heartbeat and shortness of breath and feeling just kind of like I'm losing concentration. For me, that's a mild panic attack for me. A severe panic attack. One of the ones that I had was when I was discharged from being an inpatient in a psychiatric ward at the beginning of last year. I remember it was a Monday morning. I was more or less completely unaware that I was going to be discharged. I went for my review meeting, and they said, right, we're going to discharge you this afternoon. I'd been in there, what was it, 9 days, I think, nine days. That was my 10th day. And it just come about so sudden. And I just went from being quite anxious, because I went in there very anxious, you know, I was like shaking, trembling, my breath was already kind of started to be sort of like short, and my heart was starting to race. And then I went from that to just full blown, I could barely breathe, my heart was pounding, and I was trying to breathe. I was really trying to breathe, and the breaths were coming in and out so quickly, it made me really lightheaded and dizzy. I remember stumbling into the, what's it called? Like the common room, where it's like the more public area, so to speak. And I tried to sit down, I tried to concentrate, I just couldn't, it was crazy. I had to stand up. I tried to sip some water. It was, everything felt like it was happening so fast. But then after a while, I felt like my thick pins and needles were kicking in my hands, and my hands started to cramp up like this. And my eyes started to get like closed, and I just couldn't move from it. I just felt like I was stuck like that. And I kind of walked out in this sort of like blinded sort of like T-Rex kind of fashion outside into their little garden area. And I remember one of the student nurses came with me, and she was like, right, she was being quite like reasonably assertive with me, saying, right, sit down, Scott, sit down. And then she was talking to me. And at this point, it felt like, and it sounds weird, but it felt like everything was far away from me, and I was just stuck in this small little shroud where my hands and legs were so tense. I just couldn't move them. I suppose that was something to do with like the lack of oxygen getting round, or trying to get round my body. Yeah, and I could just hear her voice, and it sounded like it was so far away. But she was just sitting next to me on this bench, and she tried to talk to me. She looked at my my sleeve, and she was like, "Oh, do you like Pokemon?" And she just started asking me questions about it, and telling me just really general chit chat, just asking me, like, you know, where I'm from, have I got any kids, and this kind of stuff. And that really helped. That really, again, sort of took my attention away from it. And then she got my attention, she started to tell me to like take a deep breath in, hold it, and then breathe out. And oh God, it felt like a lifetime. It was so draining. And eventually I started to breathe, and then my heart rate started to slow down. I could open my eyes again. My muscles are starting to relax, and I felt a lot more normal. And when I kind of got to that stage where I kind of snapped out of it, so to speak, it was weird. It was like I vanished and then just reappeared into the atmosphere. Sorry, my mouth's getting dry. And yeah, she was absolutely brilliant. I'll never forget that. That was the most intense panic attack I've ever had. And the student nurse was absolutely brilliant. She really helped me bring me back down to reality. And after that, I was kind of trembling, and I had, you know, a sugary drink and some biscuits, and all was calm after that. But yeah, that was really intense. I felt so tired. So yeah, that was me describing 2 of my panic attacks, a mild one and a severe one. But how do I deal with anxiety? Okay, so these are just some things that some basic distraction techniques that I use, and they are going to be in my next book, which will be coming out hopefully within a month. There's ones that I do when I'm alone, and ones that I do when I'm with people. So when I'm alone, I start to feel quite anxious. And before I go any further, I just want to mention some of these things I do in certain circumstances, and some I do in others. It's completely circumstantial. It will depend where I am, what I'm near, you know, whether I'm in a familiar place or an unfamiliar place, or I'm indoors or whether I'm outdoors. But these are just the general ones that I apply. So I listen to calm music. I have I have 2 calm playlists actually, and I generally listen to them. If I'm listening to fast upbeat music, I find that it actually heightens the anxiety. So it's almost like the rhythm of the music is in touch with my really fast heartbeat, and I feel that I'm just constantly going with that. Whereas the calm music does help me just to relax just a little bit more. Play a lot of Pokemon Go. If I'm feeling anxious and I'm already in public, I find Pokemon Go really helps. I do 7-11 breathing, which is basically breathe in for 7 seconds, and then you breathe out for 11 seconds. It is really hard to do that, but it is a technique that actually works. If you can't get to 11, 9 seconds is fine. So you breathe in for 7 seconds, nice and deep, and then you breathe out for 11 seconds, but you breathe out really slow and controlled. I also do square breathing. So square breathing is what the armed forces actually use. So you literally breathe in for 3 seconds, hold it for 3 seconds, breathe out for 3 seconds, hold it for 3 seconds, and then repeat the process. So it's 3, 3, 3, 3. So the idea of the square is that you count along and draw the square, so that it takes your attention away from the anxiety, the things that are causing it. I find that one really works. That's my personal favourite breathing technique. So again, you breathe in for 3 seconds, hold it for 3 seconds, breathe out for 3 seconds, and hold that for 3 seconds, and just repeat the process. Sometimes I go for a walk. It literally depends on the type of anxiety. If I'm having anxiety when I'm indoors, I find going for a walk works most of the time, especially if I'm in that irritated kind of or frustrated kind of anxiety, you know, just like really fidgety. If I feel like if I'm already out and people are looking at me and staring at me, instead I'll go and isolate myself. If I'm out in public, sometimes I'll go to like a public toilet or something like that. That usually works. Or if I'm at home or something or whatever, I'll go to my bedroom. Have something like a sugary drink or chocolate. That usually helps take the edge off things. and I play with a fidget toy. Always got one of these on me. The Tangles, my absolute favourite. I could play with this for a whole lifetime. So how do I deal with anxiety when I'm with someone? It's completely different. It's a bit easier to cope with, in my opinion. First thing I'll do is I'll tell them. If I have a panic attack whilst I'm with someone, it's usually my partner or someone at work. So I'll tell them I'm having a panic attack, especially if it's a mild one, because it's easier to convey and they can't see it. I try to talk to them and get them to talk to me. That helps massively. As I said, when I had that really severe panic attack in hospital, someone talking to me, just trying to take my mind off it, just asking any questions. Even if they knew all the answers to these questions, they were asking me how old I am and stuff like this. It doesn't matter. It's easy things for me to answer, and that's what it is me trying to focus on the answer to their question, talking about things that I really like, or things that we have in common. It just massively helps. So telling someone and just talking bullshit, basically, it works. That's for me anyway. If I'm with my partner, I'll generally hold their hand or wrap my arms around them. I know it sounds ridiculous, but holding, having something to hold when you're feeling anxious, especially because it's quite often you can tighten your grip. That really helps. If you haven't got one of these, like a fidget toy with you, holding their hand is easily just as good. I'll do 7-11 breathing with them, or square breathing, but instead of me counting it, I'll get them to kind of facilitate it. So I'll get them to count the numbers, tell me to breathe in for X amount of seconds, breathe out for X amount of seconds, hold it, etc. Works really well. If I'm out and about with someone and I'm in a really crowded area, obviously we'll go to a more isolated area, a more peaceful area where there's as little people as possible. I'll also have my fidget toy on me, of course, and try and sit down and relax. Sometimes going for a walk works, but if I don't feel that that's working, then I'll go and sit down with them, try and have a talk, just anything, just to take my mind off it. Okay, so that's basically it. That is a bit about anxiety, what panic attacks are like, and how I cope with them. Anyway, guys, let me know if you suffer with anxiety, what works for you. Leave comments below. That would be absolutely fantastic. I love reading all your comments about your experiences, and that's really interesting, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time to do that. Okay, thank you very much for watching. I'll speak to you all soon. Take care. Bye.